Okay, so this is completely unplanned. Welcome back, everybody. But we're just spontaneously doing a part two because we're just discovering a lot of new things from this story. So let me kind of bring you into what's happening in the room right now. So I'm recording with Emmi. You know, I'm good friends with her and her entire family. Samuel, man, you guys know Samuel. He helps me record, so he's in the back. And then Emmi's sister Ale is also here as well. Yeah. So here's how this whole situation started. Emmi has shared this story publicly. When was the first time you shared this?
Coming from me personally, it was at camp.
Like 2 years ago?
2 years ago, yeah.
VIP.
Yeah.
It was about 2 years ago, and I remember it was like the highlight of the camp. For those guys who know, Ale is part of an organization called MADE, and they run a youth camp every single year. And this was like the highlight because everybody knew that Emmi passed away. Everybody knew that Emmi had gone to heaven, right? Mainly because your dad was like telling everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
And America's Pastor Mario was just like telling everybody but you were not sharing it personally yourself. Yeah. And then you decided, I'm gonna share this at camp. So everyone was like, I'm excited to hear like this from Emmi personally. Yeah. So we've heard your story, but we just had a moment because you started talking about going to the beach. Mm-hmm. But you just said something that I don't ever remember you ever saying before, right, which was the nurse. Mm-hmm. And then I remember I looked at Ale, and you probably can go back on the previous video where you see me looking like at this direction right here. And I look at your sister, and I'm like, "Are you aware?" And she's looking at me. She's like, "I don't know anything about this."
Yeah.
You know.
Guys.
And you were saying like, "Well, you never heard it from me personally."
Yeah. So, to give you guys, like, background, I had been asking God ever since I shared that testimony to kind of give me, like, recollection of what happened. Because, you know, I've heard it multiple times. So, you know, like, to a point, it gets kind of rehearsed. But, like, you know, I asked God, please, like, let me have some recollection of what actually happened that day. You know, coming from my personal experience. So... yeah, makes sense.
and to kind of give a little bit like background and understanding into what is happening here. Like I'm a person that I have experienced and encounters on a regular basis, right? I mean, many of you guys already know that. So when you go into an encounter, you have to understand that you're going into the spiritual world. So Emmi had died. Okay, this woman died, was medically dead for 8 minutes.
Yeah.
And then was in a coma for 3 whole days. And when you go into the spiritual world and you come back, that's a huge transition. That's not just kind of like you were asleep and then you just wake up. Like you're literally going from one world to the next. It's like spiritual jet lag, if I can put it that way. So you don't always have memory right off the bat of what happened. Many times it's happened to me where I knew I encountered something and I don't remember everything, and I had to ask the Lord God, can you bring to my memory? And over time I started remembering, oh, I experienced this and I experienced that. And I'm sure that many of you guys who had spiritual encounters can relate, or even some of you guys who were medically dead at one point who are maybe watching can also relate as well. So that's kind of where it happened. So this whole nurse thing is really what like kind of like got all of us in the room really excited because you were in a coma.
Right.
You woke up after the coma, and your sister was just mentioning now like you didn't have a panic attack.
No.
Like you knew where you were.
Yeah.
Usually when you wake up out of a coma, the first thing is just like, where am I? That's usually people's normal response. Like, where am I? What's going on? And you were just like, oh.
I'm here. Yeah.
And it's because you had this experience with your grandmother where you were in heaven with your grandmother.
Yeah.
And then now you have this new experience where you're walking to the beach, but you're accompanied by a nurse.
Mm-hmm.
And then can you repeat again what you say you saw on your arms?
So I saw like the IV lines, like all the, where they put the medications and everything that was in my veins. So, yeah. I had recollection that I was in the hospital because I also had like the medical band on too.
So this was insane because here's the thing that I understand.
Mm-hmm.
So to give you a little more understanding as well of angels have different roles.
Yeah.
Like I previously said, there are angels that are in charge of dreams, angels that are in charge of healing, of prophecy, all of these different things. But something that's kind of gives us a really cool hint into this is that there's nursing angels, because this angel, you didn't see the face, but this angel was with you in heaven.
Yeah.
And this angel had a scrub on, like a medical scrub on.
Medical scrub, yeah.
Okay. And you felt relational. You felt like you kind of already knew this person.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And did this angel, like, or nurse, let's call her a nurse.
Yeah.
Did the nurse like guide you into the beach? Did she help you? Were you like limping? Like,
yeah. So I remember just struggling to walk, just because to me I guess I just knew that I was sick and I was ill and I struggled. Like it was a struggle to walk, so the nurse was helping me go to where I needed to go.
So some of you guys may be thinking, how can you be in heaven and struggling to walk, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you also have to understand, really what I'm believing is happening is that this angel is helping you transition.
Right.
And kind of prepare you to go back into your physical body and let you know, hey, these are the conditions that your current body is in right now.
Right.
So let me kind of give you like a little heads up of what's going on.
Right.
So when you woke up, you were not surprised at all.
I was not. I was just there.
And then you asked, I think you were just saying earlier, you asked your mom or your sister, hey, is the beach close by?
Yeah, I thought it was right, like, behind the hospital.
Wow. And you were in the middle of like inland Miami, close to Coral Gables, no?
Yeah.
Was at the hospital? Okay.
Or, yeah, around that area.
Yeah, and there's no
It wasn't
beach.
close to the beach, yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't close to the beach.
None whatsoever.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And when was it that you started remembering that you saw this specific nurse?
So, I think within the last 2 years, God has been very gracious to me and giving me kind of like the recollection of what actually happened in like snippets. I think God kind of prepares you for it. So, within the last 2 years, I've kind of like picked up here and there, whether it's with dreams or like sometimes when I'm just casually sitting or doing something, like a thought will come to my mind. It's a recollection of what happened.
Wow. Wow. And how did this affect your life? You had to have surgery, by the way.
I did, yeah.
Yeah, like you have an actual physical mark from the surgery.
I do. So, when we fast forward to my hospital stay was about two or 3 weeks, and it actually all comes together. But so when we're at the hospital, the doctors are talking to my parents and they tell them, hey, your daughter has a congenital heart defect, meaning that I was born with a malformation in my heart. So my heart is actually pretty big for my body. The condition's called Epstein's anomaly, but the biggest concern was that my heart was not pumping properly. So my heart actually made a little small hole that was really the reason why it's kept me alive all these years. So what had happened was that my heart, I guess with the physical activity and all that stuff, it just kind of went crazy and it went into an arrhythmia, and it caused my body to just flatline. So
Wow.
yeah, so the doctors were talking to my parents about, treatment plan, and surgery was discussed. But one of the doctors said, well, she's been living with this condition for over 14 years, which the average span of an individual who has that heart condition doesn't live past 6 or 8 months of birth, like after birth.
Wow.
Yeah, so the fact that I was already 14 with this condition, never showing any signs that, would indicate me having a heart problem, was a miracle. Yeah, that's the word. And so open heart surgery was discussed, but at the end they decided that no, like my heart is stable enough to just have a small surgery, and within that small surgery they implanted a defibrillator. So the best way that I can explain it is, if you ever watch any medical show, that device that the doctors rub and then just put it on the patient to shock them, that's a defibrillator. So I have one inside of me, and I have a small scar under my clavicle area. So it's there. I'm marked forever. It's a very visible scar. So yeah.
Wow. So you were not supposed to be alive. You
No.
made it to 14. You flatlined at 14. You were dead for 8 minutes.
Yeah.
And then you have this miracle.
Yeah. And the crazy thing, and this is how I said earlier, it all comes together. So the day I had my surgery was actually on my grandma's birthday.
Wow.
Yeah. The grandma that I saw in heaven. So
this is insane.
yeah, so I had it on her birthday. And going back to that too, when my grandma died, she had called my dad, because my dad wasn't able to be with her, when she was dying. And she had called my dad and told my dad, don't you worry about me. I saw a glimpse and it's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. I'm going to be okay. And according to my dad, that was the last conversation they had together.
Wow.
So this is why I said now it's a full circle.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I have goosebumps.
Yeah.
I have like complete goosebumps.
So it's crazy how like God timed it so perfectly, from like March 23rd to April 3rd, and then me being discharged from the hospital the next day. So within that time frame, it all just comes together.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
And
and
Easter.
Easter was in between. Yeah, that's right. That is right.
Jesus, there's so much
The
happening.
resurrection.
Yeah, it's true.
3 days later, huh?
There's like so much happening
Yeah.
during that time period.
Wow. This was insane. And
Yeah.
have you ever had any other like experiences after that, personally for you, or was that kind of like how has life really been for you? I guess that's the best way to say it. Ever since that happened.
Oh. So life has been very interesting. I think after everything that happened, as a family, it marked us 100% completely, because we got to kind of come together and really dedicate and devote our life to God and, doing His work. Personally, I went through a roller coaster of emotions, because it is a life-changing event. Like you don't, whatever happened in between those days in the hospital, to me it was like a vacation. I don't know if that's like the word or thing, but I was not freaked out. I was not scared of like what was going on. Like I realized and I was conscious that, okay, I have a heart condition and this is my new way of living, but I didn't expect what would come afterwards. So the upcoming days I did a lot of having to recover. I had just had surgery. I wanted to go back to school. I wanted to go back to my normal living. and the in-betweens, like I got to have a lot of personal conversations with my mom and my dad, a lot of death and dying conversations, like what would you guys have done if I actually would have died, like what would have been your plan, like what, you know, just because I was curious to know. And you know, going back to that normalcy of like going back to school and hanging out with my friends, like it was very different because now I became like a center of attention, and because, oh, she can't do that. No, you know, like you have to be so delicate. I felt like a flower, like you just have to keep that flower safe. So it was rough, like having that attention and that pressure. And I think one of the biggest things that really affected me was the fact that now I was considered a miracle. And to this day, it's really hard for me to use that word. Now I say that God divinely intervened in my life rather than using the word miracle, just because it adds a lot of pressure. You know, like I'm the pastor's daughter who had a miracle happen in her life, and you know, like all eyes were on me and my family, you know, so it was weird. And I was severely depressed during that time. And I think, I don't know if people ever noticed, but it was hard. Like it was a struggle, like, you know, dealing with all those emotions, because I never went to like, and you know, counseling is very important.
Yes.
Processing is very important, and I felt like I couldn't do that because the people in my circle, you know, were very fond of the idea that everything that happened was a miracle. So, you know, and I was a teenager, so obviously all my emotions are all over the place, and they're just things that I couldn't process. I went through a process of like having like body image issues because I had gained so much weight because of the medication I was on. Some of the medication really affected me emotionally. Like there was days where I was just not myself. Like I was a very angry and mean person rather than sweet little Emmi. So, you know, you have that all in between, and then trying to process this new way of living, you know, I felt like I was just suffocated, you know. And here I had just experienced the most amazing God divine intervention, and I can't even, you know, process it fully and share it because I never shared it myself from a personal standpoint.
Okay, it makes sense. So you felt like, okay, this event happened and everyone around you is crying, miracle, miracle, miracle.
Yeah.
And you have not had the space or privacy to be able to like, okay, let me really just process everything that just happened to me. Yeah. And I totally understand that. You know, there might be some people that might be watching you were like, well, I mean, you should just testify. But I can personally totally understand that, because when I had my experiences, I was so confused on what was going on. Like, God, what are you doing in my life? Why did this happen? Yeah. What is like? There's so many questions, right, that come with that. People think that you have an experience like that, and it's just flower and roses right afterwards.
And it's not.
And it's really,
it's really not. It's like cactuses.
It is. Yeah. It is. You end up with so many questions.
You do.
And I remember for a long time I didn't really want to talk about it. Because I was still trying to process why. Right. And I wanted to be a normal person too. Yeah. I wanted to live a normal life, and I felt like I was irregular. And did you feel the same way?
Very irregular. I felt like I also couldn't share this experience with my friends because they wouldn't understand, and they'd probably look at me like, you are crazy, you know? Especially, I mean, going through like high school and all that stuff, obviously. But yeah, I didn't feel normal, and I guess the part where you say like, you just feel confused, I started feeling anger towards God. Like, God, why? You know, like why? Like I didn't want to experience this, but yet it happened. But now, like you know, when you just ask God, why? There's times where I told God, why did you let this happen to my sister? You know, like, and I mean, we're being blunt and honest, you know. Needless to say, I love her dearly. You know, I would never wish her anything bad. But, you know, you get to ask those questions like, why?
Absolutely. Wow. Well, what would you say today to anyone who may be watching, who is still trying to process whether they believe that heaven is real, whether they believe that God is real, whether they may think that, like, well, maybe this was just some neurological experience that you had.
Yeah.
Now, this being years later, what would you say to someone that may have those thoughts?
Yeah. So, I am so thankful for the last 5 years because, you know, I turned 18, I moved away for college, and I kind of got to figure things out for myself.
Yeah.
And it was such a special time because I really got to grow my relationship with God, kind of figure things out
on your own,
on my own, not having that space where everyone's just
calling you the miracle child.
Exactly. So I would say I do believe that God allowed me to have this experience. To this day, you know, maybe to share it to all of you guys, because heaven is real. Like, there's just no doubt about it. You know, every single day I, you know, thank God because I did have that experience. Now with my current job, you know, I get to be that seed where I get to kind of give hope, because I do work with a lot of families where they're kind of went through similar experiences as me in the hospital setting, and you know, that experience has forever marked my life, and I just want it to be kind of an encouragement for everybody else because heaven is real, and I do want you guys to go to heaven, because it's a wonderful experience.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, I just want to say to everyone who's watching this video, maybe you may be struggling with the thought of that if God is real, is heaven real? And I'll tell you this, we can't force you to believe that God is real or heaven is real. Nor are we trying to force you with this. But this is just her story. This is just Emmi's story. It's a real story. It's something that actually truly happened. And God really intervened personally in her life. And again, we can't force you personally to believe that there is a God or that God is real. But we want to encourage you to give God a chance and to give really give him an opportunity to manifest himself in your life. And maybe you say, well, Freddie, I've already given him an opportunity. I went to church, I did this, I did that, you know. And many times I'll tell you that we have a lot of church experiences that don't really lead us to God. But I want to invite you to just ask God himself to manifest himself to you. Ask him to make himself known to you. And you will be surprised in the ways that he will do so. Many times he won't reveal himself the way that you're hoping or you're asking him to, but he'll reveal himself in his personal way. So I want to invite you in this moment, that if you're in that place, to just really give Jesus a chance, because he is real. He loves you more than you can know or understand. And the most beautiful thing about God too is that he's so patient with us.
He is very, very patient.
That's one of the best things. Because listen, if I was God, I would have been like, no, goodbye.
Yeah.
You know,
very patient.
But even in my story, God was so patient with me, because it was, I believe, 10 years before I publicly ever started speaking about my heaven stories. And through all that process, I needed to process. I went through counseling. I told God no numerous of times. And he was still very patient and loving. And so that same patience and love also goes towards you. So we want to bless you right now. And we just pray over you in the name of Jesus that his peace and his love will find you, and that you will encounter this loving and peaceful Jesus in your personal life today. In Jesus' name, amen. We love you. Make sure that you share this video and that you subscribe to this channel for more exciting interviews like this. You have a wonderful day.